Welcome to the podcast. The cornerstone of business is sales. No sales, no business. This is true no matter what type of business you're operating. But how can a sustainable business leverage their effort on sustainability into their sales work, and what can it do for them? It was questions like these that made me decide that there should definitely be an episode around sales and the connection and intersection between sustainability and sales in this episode. And therefore, I'm really, really happy to be able to present to you today Amanda Downs on the podcast here today. Amanda has more than 35 years of experience in sales and is passionate about helping as many businesses as possible to harness and sell their value. She works with commercial leaders and their teams on strategy, on processes and skills to be able to be the best they can for their customers. So basically, all in all, a one-stop shop for selling, it sounds like. So Amanda, thank you so much for joining the show and welcome.
Thank you, Jasper.
And I would like us to kick off just on a bit about, as I said in the beginning, selling is obviously pretty essential for a business success. But how has sales as a discipline, how has that sort of developed over the last couple of years?
Well, after a couple of years, I think
I'll
go back a bit. A little bit back a bit further, actually. I mean, when I first started selling in the late 80s, early 90s, to sell, you've got to go and find the person and stand in front of the person, possibly make a phone call. But actually, it is so different now. And the absolute key change for me is that now people buy before they've even seen you, potentially before they even know the company, and certainly before you've had that first conversation. And as a result of that, we've got to be pretty clever in terms of how we go about selling our businesses and how we go about making sure that our customers know the value. So some of the massive changes have been that actually people are usually way down the sales pipeline before they actually meet you. And for me, the absolute key is how we go about selling our value. So that harnessing, as you said, Jasper, that harnessing of the value, making sure that our sales teams and actually everybody in the business understands the why, understands the value that the business brings, and is contributing, if you like, to the kind of the pipeline of value that we need the customer to see, of which one thing, a big thing, and is going to grow and grow, clearly is sustainability. So how's it changed? People buy before they meet you. And therefore it's really key to make sure that we sell value.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess you could say it used to be, if you have good salespeople, you're good to go. Whereas now it's like, well, you got to make sure your whole company supports it and everything you do. Yeah. And as you say, it's not just sales, it's any point of contact that anybody basically can have with their company. Yeah. That's part of the sales process, right? So everybody's on sales all of a sudden.
Yeah, there are lots and lots of buzzwords around, and it's all around customer. So it's around customer enablement and customer service and customer management, which is brilliant for me because, sales is one of those kind of needs to be demystified, because sales is not a dirty word. As businesses, as SME, I'm an SME myself. As SMEs, we're not selling the snake oil. We're not selling something that's not going to work, right? And therefore, the very fact that we're working on sustainability projects means that we've got something brilliant that we want to sustain. And and this pipeline of, in an SME, it's so much easier than in a huge, great big business for us to get that through. The number of times I've gone into a factory, the number of times I've gone into a factory, and the manufacturing teams and the technical teams and the team leaders have got brilliant sales nuggets of brilliance that actually don't get as far as the sales person.
Could you give an example or two of that? That sounds interesting. What is it that you find that people have basically sitting on their shelves that's not part of sales rhythm of sales work today?
So an example would be I worked with a team who make food, so meals, and I went into the factory and spoke to the technical director on the topic of how to help his team to be able to influence when a customer came to the factory for a first production, for a visit of some description. And we went through the process that this business had chosen in terms of the way that they wanted to sell, and we'd worked with them to make sure that that fitted for the business. And the technical director said, I would like my whole team to be able to do that. So in we came and spoke at length to the technical director, and we got as far as value selling story. We got as far as what are the key things, the key, I mean, in sales, we call it features, right? The key features of the products that was coming off the line, and why is that? What are the points of difference? Why should customers buy? And he came up with 10 different reasons why their factory was better than their competitor's factory, some of which were around sustainable methods and things that they were doing to make sure they were as effective as possible and so on, which the sales team were not aware of.
So just sitting there waiting to be utilized.
Yeah.
But that takes me to a question, and that something that I've stumbled upon a lot of times is that many salespeople, and please let me know if this reflects your experience as well, but they shy away a bit from diving into that sort of field of sustainability and using whatever they have. One thing is that they don't know it, but even the stuff that they do know, and that might even be sort of packaged to be used in the sales process, that they shy a little bit away from sort of diving into it if they're not in front of a customer that actively seeks this kind of information. Do you recognize this picture, and why do you think it is so?
I really do, genuinely. Certainly with the businesses that I've worked with, I work quite a lot in the food industry. I genuinely, the story I just gave you about that technical director, I genuinely think that we need to find ways for the sales team to be aware. And salespeople need a sales angle, right? And salespeople are looking for ways in which they can develop, and I've written it up behind me, that sustainable sales, right? And therefore, I have not yet met, if I'm really honest, my experience is a bit different to yours, Jasper, because I've not met a salesperson who, when they really deeply understand and have had the opportunity to talk it through and to see where it fits in the pipeline and see where the value is. I've not met a person who's not gone, that's amazing, I'm taking that to my customer. Now, I know
the difference probably lies in the words you say, who proper understands.
Yes. So
right?
having read your book, Jasper, I know that, and I do absolutely recognize that when it's all around the leadership and all around the management and all around the pipeline, I see it as I think we spoke about this earlier, didn't we? I see it as like a pipe, like a rocket, and we pile in the gunpowder of amazingness at the beginning of the pipe. And then by the time it gets through to the customer, sometimes it dribbles out a little bit. But what we're looking for is all of those nuggets. And one of those nuggets absolutely needs to be sustainability. I think one of the other areas is that there is a bit of a fear that sustainability equals price increase. Now, again, if we're looking for sustainable sales, and so I'm really keen to come on this podcast, because actually, who is not looking for sustainable sales, right? Then if we are looking for sustainable sales, then we need to find ways in which we can make sure that the sales team understand, are able to prepare, and are trained to sell that value story, which is critical, right?
But do you experience? Do you experience? Is it harder to teach or onboard the salespeople in sustainability compared to all the other areas that they need to cover?
Well, I mean, bear in mind, I've been doing this for many years. The sustainability angle that what is happening in terms of not just sustainable, that's just that whole sustainability thing, which does include people, of course.
Obviously.
It's something that I've been working with for probably 5-6 years now, making sure that it is integrally included in our bespoke sales academies, so that actually it's there anyway. It's there in it's there deeply in values, it's deeply in purpose, and therefore actually it becomes a key thing. So what's in the meal, what's in the food product, as well as where it came from, that provenance, which is really, really key, I think. So yeah, my advice really is to make sure that your sales team deeply understand the kind of the value chain from, right from where your raw materials comes from through to, as I say, coming out in the pipeline to whoever it is that are your customers.
That sort of takes us on to what does it really take? Because this is obviously one of the things that it takes, but as a sustainable business or a force for good company or whatever you want to frame this, but somebody that really seriously engage in this agenda, what does it take to get a great sales organization and sales process for such a company?
Yeah. It's an interesting one, and I wrote this one out this morning actually, so that I could just hold it up. But that the Simon Sinek, the Simon Sinek's Golden Circle.
Yes,
That's what
absolutely.
it takes. Let me explain it for those who've never seen it before. We very, very often,
The why and
as
the how and the what, right? In the three
yeah,
circles. Yeah.
yeah, as business people and as salespeople, and in any function in a business, actually, we spend a lot of time on tasks. Spend so much time on who am I ringing today? Who do I need to? What do I need to move on? Who is it that I need to influence in my organization to make sure that things happen? What are the problems that I'm juggling? What are all of the issues that I need to look after? And with the how bit, kind of, you're kind of thinking about how you go about it, how you're going to influence people, how you're going to sell, how you're going to negotiate, all of that element. But actually, what I love about the rise and the absolute, we all need to do this, right? Because the world is getting warmer, is what's the why? And I know everybody talks about the why, but unless you can sell to the why, people are not going to buy. Sell to the why, that rhymes. Sell to the why, or they won't buy, or at least they won't buy long term. So for me, the key, we do this with customers right down to customer level. Next week, I'm working with a team who've got a brilliant product. They've got a high level why, they've got a high level purpose, and actually the sales team are struggling to sell new products in. And what's happened is that the team haven't properly translated that why into a customer why, which has to be a joint purpose, right? A joint vision of success. And yeah, so I would say it's training, wouldn't I? But I think it is actually about getting everybody in the business on board. I really do. I really do. And the sales team they are the front end. They are the face of a business very, very often. We train them to be so, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got to give them I'm not going to say ammunition. We've got to give them those brilliant nuggets of differentiation. We don't need to be unique in a business. We just need to make sure that the team have got, or whoever it is that's responsible for sales, really, really get the why. And then we've got some storytelling to develop, right?
Yeah. Okay. So say we will have a lot of business leaders listening to the podcast, and they might be sitting dreaming to increase sales. Probably all of them are at some point, at some level. So it seems like one of the things, if they are to harness the power of their sustainability effort, it's clearly about making sure that you educate your salespeople to the level that they deeply understand it, and also therefore is, I guess, putting themselves on the line on this subject, right? Because in sales, there's a lot of person you got to give in yourself, right? So you got to educate them, and you got to be really clear on the ability to articulate your why. I'm guessing if you are such a company, you know your why, but if not, it's not precisely clear.
Not always.
No, right.
Not
So that you
always.
gotta,
Yeah.
yeah, so you gotta get clear on that, and you gotta be able to articulate that and get that out to all of the sales organization, but specifically as well to sales. What else would you advise them to do? What would be the next couple of steps to sort of fine tune that engine and really leverage the power of their sustainability effort?
Okay, well, I think there are a couple of things, as a leader, to make sure that I mean, we talk about communication, make sure there are, and it's a big word, right? And a small word. The teams where it's working best that I've seen, the leadership are role modeling
Mm.
sustainability, and they have. I know this sounds really obvious. It does sound obvious, but we don't forget that we need to get a rhythm of time in the diary when we can actually physically talk to our teams to make sure that they're clear that that it absolutely is the right way to go. So I know that's really obvious, but make sure you've
No,
got
it's
those
not.
times in.
Unfortunately, I think it's
Yeah,
obviously if you ask people, but if you look
yeah,
at their daily
yeah,
schedule,
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah,
far from obvious, I would
yeah.
say.
And if and therefore, so it's an opportunity both in larger groups and also one to one. If you've got a small sales team, or indeed, you might just have one person who is your sales lead, to make sure that you are coaching it, that you are sharing it, that you've got a joint vision of success, that you're really clear about what's happening with customers. And then coming on to customers, when we work, we co-develop, we co-design training to make sure it fits, and it is. I mean, that's why I love this. It's sustainable selling processes and
Hmm.
practices in a business. When we do that, broadly speaking, it's a framework of understand, plan, sell, negotiate, and deliver. And the
Okay.
understand section, if that was a pyramid, would be right at the bottom and be the biggest area. Because the key thing for me is that we need, as businesses and therefore as salespeople, to deeply understand what's happening with customers, because all of our customers will be in the same boat.
Hmm.
All of our customers will be doing and thinking and concerning themselves with how sustainability fits for their business. If they're on the journey, how can we make sure that we are taking our customers with us? And the first thing to do, I do a little exercise actually with sales teams when we're coming into working with them, and I ask them to Google their customer. Google your key customer leaders
Hmm.
and see what they're doing for sustainability, and it will be something. It will
Yeah.
be. It will be something, particularly in manufacturing. It will be something. And therefore, what we find that there is a hook around which, and a framework around which, we can then add our own value story, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's always a good one. And we do it often actually, Google your customer and see what's happening now, because it changes, right? The
Yeah.
situation changes, the people change, the news changes, the
Yeah.
world changes.
Fastly at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I would absolutely say that. The other
So that was the
thing,
first one. Yeah,
yeah.
you
Oh yeah.
mentioned a couple in your model. So you had in the base of that pyramid, it says understanding. What were the other levels? And could you add a
Yeah,
few sort of insights on those as well?
yeah. So it's understand, then plan. So plan
Hmm.
and prepare. And before we even go near a customer, when we are thinking, let's new business or even an existing customer, actually, if we're going to bring this into the mix or make sure that we make the most of what's already happening, it's about planning. So, what plan a vision, plan what you're going to do with your customer, create a, kind of pretty basic customer plan that says, actually, based on the insight that we've got about this customer, this is what we're aiming to do. It's going to fit for the customer. And we can then decide what our big strategies are with that customer. And then we've got actions. So and it's a shareable thing. One of the things that does not happen as much as it should is that we get, I'm big on a one pager. There's a one pager that says, here's what we're doing with this customer, or a channel, it might be, or
Hmm.
a category, or a market, that says this is what we're trying to achieve. And then the training and the value selling stories and the deep understanding and the alignment through that pipeline means that it comes out at the other end with a big bang. The other three sections are sell stories, and then sell. The key thing is to sell before negotiating.
What do you mean by that?
Well, actually, let me give you an example. If you have a sustainability project, which they do take a bit more money, they are potentially an investment, not always, but potentially an investment. If you have something coming along the line that's around sustainability that might increase price, and if we're working on the whole value chain in a sustainable partnership, then actually what we can do is we can make sure that we are selling that. So we are making sure we're telling that value story before we get to the point where the salespeople goes, I'm not talking about that because it's going to increase the price and I don't want to do that. And what then happens is they don't leave themselves anywhere enough time to understand, plan and sell. And then the customer goes, that's going to cost more money. No, thank you. And then they're in negotiation.
Yeah.
So we can't. It's a really interesting one. We very often get asked to help sales teams with negotiation skills. Almost always when we dig into what's exactly happening in that team, it's not really about negotiating. It's about the value selling story. And therefore, when I say sell before negotiate, actually, when you think about what negotiation is, it's a two-way process to agree the terms of a deal, right?
Yeah, once you have already decided to do something together,
correct.
Right?
You got it. You got to have sold first. They got to be sold first.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think this is really, really interesting because I don't know how many times I hear people say in my market there really isn't room for it, or they're not asking for a greener product or whatever they want to call it. I fear that it will be more costly because of the way we're doing it or whatever, right? And this fact that take your customer onto the journey way before you actually present the product, right?
Exactly.
So, and I think that's a really, really valuable advice that if you're sitting out there listening to this and know, well, we are actually doing something here, but so far we're kind of like, shh, don't tell anybody, we're not ready, right? It's the opposite. Go out and tell everybody and bring them on and learn. And it really fits well with also getting input on what do they want and what do you need so you can fit it the right way. So in many ways, it works really, really well, but
I genuinely, you think about the value chain from, if it's full food, then in the field to the fork, somewhere along the line. And if it's a piece of machinery that we're selling or value, wherever it is, that somewhere along the line, somebody is thinking about sustainability. And do you know who it usually is? The key people thinking about sustainability?
No, who would you be?
Was consumers.
Yeah.
We're all consumers and we're all trying really hard, right, to do our bit at home. And therefore, it's coming from all angles. The leaders, my advice to you would be, we need to step into this. We totally need to step into it with confidence and conviction and make a start. And it might not be making a start in your factory. It might be making a start in terms of your social responsibility, supporting your people in what they're doing, making sure that you've got. I was in a business the other day, and one of the team members. We were running a workshop in one of their rooms, and one of the team members said, "Where's the recycling bin? Where is that?" And I went, "Yeah, where is that?" And it was a new meeting room and they hadn't got it organised. And the whole of the team were going, we've got to sort that out. We're not having that. Where am I going to put my paper and my bottle? So, all of those elements are all build up to a picture of what we're doing, trying to be more on purpose, right?
Yeah. So this is interesting. And I like to sort of, if we, zoom out a little bit and then say, in your experience, what sort of how important to if you look at sales, let's just imagine that's, this is the full process, 100%, the full, everything we do around sales add up to the 100% sales process. How important, or what proportion where would you position, what chunk of that process in terms of importance, not in time, would you say that higher purpose or sustainability or a force for good or whatever, where would you sort of fit that in along with all the other things that go into the sales process about quality, time, and price, and all of that? How important would you say that getting this piece right is?
Well, when I've been thinking about this podcast, Jasper, it's an interesting one, and I do quite a bit from my home office here, so I've got all sorts of equipment here, and I've just popped that up on the flip chart because actually, if we can think about this holistically, sustainable sales is the lifeblood of any business. Therefore, actually, if we can get to the position where everybody's thinking sustainable sales, kind of like a bit of a worm in the head and the ear, right? That actually there are the elements of wouldn't it be great if the salespeople, which does happen really, saying, actually, could we do that more? Have we told people about that? How are we doing this? What are we doing? Back to the recycling bins, which is a small thing. Everybody can do that. Everybody can do that. That actually, where are we in the pipeline? So can you put a percentage on it? I think it's everything. I think it's a really holistic thing. If we are looking for sustainable sales in a business, and who isn't, we need to sustain we need a long-term partnership and a sustainable way of working with our customers, with our cross functions, with our suppliers, with our network, in our external communication. Yeah, you could argue, I know you would like to argue, Jasper, but you could argue that it's everything.
Yeah,
Actually.
and at least one thing I see quite often that, and I also, that when I tell this to business people, it's kind of like, yeah, perhaps, because often if you look at, let's just say it's a tendering process, to make it really simple so for a public client, and they might say, well, sustainability is perhaps just weighted 5 percentage points or something, right? But then I ask them, well, how equal are you to your competitors? If I look at your product, I had a conversation with a client the other day where I say, if I look at your product, I would say that yours over your competitors is basically, it's really down to the minute details, right? So price, quality, your terms of delivery, service, after sales service, all of that, more or less the same, right? So if you look them up, they stack up, but you just follow each other, right? And then it might just be the 5 percentage point, but that could be the differentiating factor. So quite often, because everything else has been optimized so much, and they all compete on the same indicators. So if you stick your head up above water on sustainability, it might give you those few percentage that actually tip the scale. Do you recognize that picture?
Yep, absolutely right. And I know of clients who have tendered for multi hundreds, actually, of millions of business with a UK major multiple, for example, and exactly that reason is why they missed, when their product was pretty much the same as their competitor's product. And again, if the tender had realized that if my client had realized that was the case, it's not really 5%, is it?
No, exactly, right?
Nah,
No.
it's more than that. And it's one of those things around language used in tender. So it's one of we talk a lot about head and heart. We've got head stuff in a tender. Here's all the details. Here's a specification. Here's the pricing that we give you. Here's the contract length we want. Here's how we would manage you, etc., etc. Actually, the heart is why people buy. I think it's Daniel Kahneman in his book Thinking Fast and Slow talks about even the most experienced and qualified expert still buys 80% on heart.
Exactly. Yeah.
And therefore
I
everybody
fully
buys
agree.
on heart.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also would recommend is if you are going to work with your sales team on sustainability, then bring in your procurement people, because that's where the golden nuggets are coming from mainly. And actually those procurement people need to understand how to buy in the way that you are going to sell. And you know what? Buying and selling is the same thing. Just
Yeah, that's
slightly,
interesting.
just
And
different.
yeah, exactly, just the opposite direction. But I think I really agree, and I just want to pick up on that point about the heart piece, right? Because we are all people. So no matter what position you're in, we are all people. And at the end of the day, if we decide, and then we use the brain to justify that that's the decision we have made. So if you're not completely off on price or something else, they will go with what they would like to do. And I think that's also why, back to what you said previously, that why this is spreading like wildfire is that more or less every day, at least every month, wherever you live, you experience some sort of weather extreme. Now it's off, right? It's hotter, it's colder, it's wetter, it's stormier, it's whatever it is. And that just keeps reinforcing that story that you've been hearing for the last 3 or 4 centuries, where experts have been telling you climate change, things is going to go, hey, we're heading into problems and so on and so on. And now people just feel it. And again, we are people, right? At the end of the day. So we might say, well, I will not justify changing my life or whatever, but down in your, as a personal level and in your heart again, you will be more scared and you would like to do something differently. And then you are there evaluating 2 offers. And one of them, right, is they might be slightly more expensive, but it just feels better, right? And it helps me a bit of a relief, I guess, because now I'm also doing something. I went with this supplier because now I know that our product here is at least in the better end of the spectrum out there, right? So I think that heart piece is really, really important to remember.
It really, really is. And one of the things that has changed, I'm just looking across my notes actually, it's reminded me when you asked me earlier around what's changed in sales. Well, apart from it being more diverse, here I am. Apart from it being more diverse, it is also more human. So when I work with micro businesses, sometimes with kind of one person businesses, founder businesses, I in the past have run a workshop called Authentic Selling, because what is more authentic than being able to contribute in some small way in your business to that? It is 17 degrees. Yesterday I went out in the UK. It should be snowing and frosty. It is 17 degrees at lunchtime. And we know that's not right. It's just not right. And therefore, anything that we can contribute is really important. And that's from heart, right? As well as head. And this authentic, what I call the authentic value storytelling. So that the pipeline of what you are doing in your business, because we're all doing our absolute best, right? And I do think it is a mindset. Sustainability is a mindset as well as changing from one plastic to another. It absolutely is.
I think it's fascinating. If I look across what you just talked about for the last sort of half hour or whatever, however long we've been on here, a couple of things stand out that are really, really important, right? So the fact that sales doesn't happen in sales, it happens for everybody who is somewhat related to the organization, and that sales happens before the sale.
Yes.
I think that's another crucial point. And then I really love the fact that, sell before you negotiate as well. But combine all of this with this, well, we might evaluate with our head, but we actually decide with our heart. And how we are influenced on a daily basis because we have all these experiences with the world going south here. So we need to we need to up our game. And again, as a listener to this, if you're sitting considering, is the timing right? Is it time to step up my game on sustainability? Everything you've been telling here just underlines, well, if you want to be positioned better towards your competitors, the answer should be a clearly simple and loud yes.
Yeah, and take your front end customer facing people with you on the journey.
Absolutely,
yeah. Actually, take them on the journey. So if you are thinking of changing the plastic on a bottle lid or whatever it is you're thinking of doing, then get that project team together with sales, so that we talk about cross-functional working. Sustainability is a cross-global working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore, at the very least, we can work cross-functionally in our own businesses, right?
Yeah.
Get them
I think
on
that's
board.
that's another good point, right?
Yeah.
Because rarely I find you will have salespeople in on product development. But back to your point about they need to understand it not just at a superficial level, but actually understand what's going on. And I like your point about as well. If they do, they will start asking different questions because they have that very close relationship with their customers. So they could also bring back the insights. Well, yesterday we talked about this. Could we do anything on that? Could we fix that problem? So
Yeah. This is where, we talk about that pyramid or the cycle of understand, plan, sell, negotiate, execute, or deliver. Everybody needs to understand the people, the businesses, wherever you are in the chain, B2B, B2C, wherever you are. Everybody needs to understand the person who's going to buy it. I do quite a lot of work on, that just coming here around, that style, personal style. You get some businesses who will shout out about their sustainability approach. You'll get some who are doing it quietly under the radar, and then you get people in between, businesses in between. And it is, if we don't understand customers when we're thinking about changing the plastic on a bottle, then more fool us, right? A bit of and a bit of advice for you, Jasper, with your clients around sustainability: get the sales people in.
Yeah.
Get them into the project early.
I would like to ask you a question here on, because it seems so obvious that everybody should know their customers, right? And I very often ask when I work with my clients, ask them, what are your top 3 or top 5 problems for you in your own business, not on sustainability, but in your business in general? They can deliver that. And then I say, what's your ideal client's top 3, top 5? And interestingly, over the years, I discovered that most of them, they know 1 or perhaps 2, and they're not even certain that those are, they just know that they're important, but they don't really know if they're top 3 or top 5. So this sort of lack of insight into the client's reality, I was just, is that your experience as well? And what can you, what do you say to people and to organizations when you're out, if you discover that they don't really actually know? How do you learn in a way that apparently isn't as frightened as it must be? Or
Well, I've been in sales many, many years, and actually when I first started in sales, and I do recognize this still in some teams, is that actually sales is seen as front end, go for it, let's make sure that we are hitting our targets. It's quite kind of very results focused. Are you still with us, Jasper? Hey, Jasper. Hi, Jasper.
Hi.
I think
something
I lost.
happened.
Yeah,
there was a bit of a glitch.
Yeah. So let me
so we need to go back.
Let me just say that again for the podcast.
Yeah.
One of the things that is really, really critical is understanding. And salespeople in the past, which gets them a bad name, right? Make people, is that it's all results, targets, go for it. Why haven't you hit your target? Oh my goodness, I've got to go and try and sell more. When actually, stop, breathe, think really hard about your customer. And again, when we work with teams, we give them a framework to do this. If I think about the content of a sales academy, it is 50%. 50% understand and plan, at least, actually, possibly a bit more. 50% of the tools and the processes and the thinking is understand and plan. We use a process called the 7 C's, and some of the C's to think about when you're understanding a customer, which requires some time, right? What's happening in your country and market? What's happening in your customer? What's happening in your company? And how do you make sure that these are linked? There are another 4, which if anybody needs that, we can let you know. But actually, it's deeply important. When we run, let's say we run 4 days of training for a sales team in the first year of a partnership, an academy partnership. 2 of those days are on understand.
Yeah.
2 of the 4, so 50% of the sessions are on understand, and it is the one thing when we co-design some sales training. When we do that, it's the one thing that we use a post-it process, and all of the post-its, nearly all of the post-its, are in understand and plan.
Yeah.
We're not doing enough of that. What are they doing? Well, you're pushing them to get more sales and be on the phone or whatever it is, however it is they do it. Stop. Understand. And make sure that is in the planning process. And I don't mean the sales planning, I mean the business planning process. Get your salesperson to present back to all of the functions around what's going on with the customer and what that therefore means for them. What you tend to get is a salesperson telling you what the sales numbers are. Yeah, we can see that. It's not that we need to make sure is in the pipeline. It's the deep understanding of a customer and the dynamics and the insight that's going to allow us to make a decision about whether we change the plastic on a budget.
I think that's a really it's a nice way to end, because that knowledge and insight, as you say, it's at least 50% of the whole process. So if anybody listening here now sits and thinks, do I know enough about my customers and their reality? I would think it's time to ask again. And even just this little conversation in my head has, I've been working a lot on this, but do I actually know enough? Or do I need to up my game even more? It's really essential, because how else can you best serve them and solve the issues, right? And how can you figure out, because I think that's also where the connection back to sustainability is interesting, is there's so many things you can do if you look at sustainability as a toolbox to solve different kinds of issues. But you got to know what's most important for your client to choose the right kind of problem to address.
Yeah.
And thereby maximize the value you can get out of it. And by doing that, you will also increase the sales. And since the product and the environmental impact is connected, you will also increase your impact.
All of which are learnable skills. We're not asking ourselves or our customers in general. I know that because every single piece of training that we ever do, we talk about great questioning techniques, and we call them high gain or precision questions, is to ask yourselves and your customers the questions that are going to unearth the value that you can bring.
That sounds interesting. Well, if people want to know more, I mean, we could talk forever, but I think we need to wrap up here. So if people want to know more about you and the stuff you do, where can they find you? How can they connect with you? Is there any place that can go and, understand more of your models or anything?
Absolutely. Well, you are very, very welcome to link in with me, Amanda Downs too, on LinkedIn. You are absolutely welcome to email me. It's Amanda@uspire, which is USPIRE .co.uk. And I don't know whether you put the details onto the end of the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you can look onto our website, which is www.
All right. So there people can also find some more insights to some of the models here and find out how to connect and work with you if they like.
Absolutely.
That sounds perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, Amanda, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for being on the show today and for sharing some of your incredibly amount of insights and really valuable experiences here. So I think a lot of people will have a bit of reflecting to do, and perhaps a bit of changing to do in their sales process and sales setup. So really thank you for spending time with us today and sharing. It's been such a pleasure.
I've enjoyed it. We could, as you say, we could go on for a while.
Yeah, exactly. We might do
Yeah.
a number 2 at some point.
Maybe.
Follow up.
Listen, good
Yeah,
luck everybody in your sustainable selling.
exactly. And with that said, thank you all for listening, and please remember to subscribe. And if you know just one person that you think could benefit from increasing their sales and harvesting sustainability in their sales, then please just forward this to that one person, and thereby together we can help spread some of this incredible knowledge. So thank you for listening, and have a nice day.